When the clowns over at the Fox Propaganda Network tried to peddle the disingenuous talking point that President Biden is cognitively unfit for office, Jessica Tarlov was on hand and she decided to apply that same standard to their cult leader, Donald Trump. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. All right, folks, so the primary thesis of the Pondering Politics channel is we want to make the case that despite the fact that the progressive left is imperfect and the Democratic Party certainly is imperfect as political proxies, they are eminently preferable to the regressive right and the Republican Party, not just for marginalized groups, not just for blue states and blue cities, but also for conservative constituents across the country. But a secondary thesis of this channel is that we are the unofficial fan club of Jessica Tarlov, who is the lone voice of sanity on the Fox Propaganda Network. She's up there, in my opinion, with Mehdi Hasan in terms of mainstream liberal/progressive commentators. She is a regular, the one token liberal/lefty voice on The Five, which I think would be more accurately described as 4v1. And despite the fact that she's outnumbered by some of the worst actors on the Fox Propaganda Network, like Greg Gutfeld and Jesse Waters and Judge Jeanine Pirro, and to a lesser extent Dana Perino, Jessica Tarlov is more than a match for these people because she's better on the facts. The facts tend to favor her, and she is an intrepid person, despite the interruptions, despite the rude comments and the attempts to disrupt her. She is more than a match for these people. And so recently, the question of President Biden's cognitive fitness for office came up. And this is an anxiety that, unfortunately, a majority of Americans share thanks to the bad faith but very sophisticated and relentless Republican propaganda machine. It is a standard and a scrutiny which, unfortunately, has only applied to Joe Biden. And Democrats desperately have to step up their game to make sure that scrutiny and that standard is equal, because Donald Trump is only 3 years younger than Joe Biden. He's considerably less healthy, and he's considerably less intelligent. And so finally, you have on the Fox Propaganda Network someone who is going to step up and call this out. So I want to play the clip, and we will unpack it all together.
Remember when Biden said, I'm going to go take a nap or it's late? And Peter said that he was working into the wee hours of the night. He said he's held a complete schedule. And our perception around the world, by the way, is up since Biden came into the presidency.
And this was what she's referring to here was that President Biden recently made that trip to the G20 in which he was, I think it was India. It was certainly overseas. And I think right on top of that, he made a trip to India as well. And he basically had to cross through a gazillion time zones. He was up all night, and he stayed around and answered substantive questions about his trip from the press, and then he joked that it's time to go to bed. And he was mocked for it by the Fox Propaganda Network. And Jessica Tarlov's pointing out that even Peter Doocy, who is a Fox employee, who is one of the toughest questioners and reporters that's on the White House beat, even he said, yeah, Biden has been busting his hump and basically undermined the talking points. So she's pointing that out.
Based on what?
Based on what other world leaders and people in other countries think of America. But you said, okay, you don't need to watch him. Let's just hear what comes out of his mouth.
And again, she's correct to point out poll after poll after poll after poll, and the consensus of global leaders is that America is more respected under President Biden than it ever was under Donald Trump. That is a losing argument for Jeanine Pirro. You can say whatever you want about Trump versus Biden, but it is a fact. It's an incontrovertible fact, and nobody has any evidence to the contrary that America is better respected with Joe Biden at the helm than with Donald Trump.
And I put together some of Trump's latest cognitive beauties from the last 10 days. He said you need an ID to buy bread. Has anyone shown ID to get Wonder Bread lately?
So real quick, I want to play that clip, just again as a reminder, just so in case you're wondering if she's taking him out of context.
I saw on the television one of these characters. There shouldn't be voter ID. Now you have voter ID to buy a loaf of bread. You have ID to buy a loaf of bread. You have everything. You have pictures when they.
So there he is on TV saying that you have to buy, you need an ID to buy a loaf of bread.
He said that he ran against Obama in 2016. He ran against Hillary Clinton. He warned that Biden will get us into World War II, which I'm pretty sure we already fought and won. And yesterday, he confused Jeb Bush and George W. Bush and said that Jeb got us involved in the Middle East.
Now, I didn't have clips ready for the other two things, but we've discussed them previously about about those examples, World War II and things like that as well. The reference that she just made to Jeb Bush, that was more recent. I quickly do want to play that clip.
It's less than 4 months before the season starts. We start in Iowa, we go to New Hampshire, we come down here. You know, the beauty was when I came here, everyone thought Bush was going to win. And then they took a poll and they found out Trump was up by about 50 points. Everyone said, what's going on right here? They thought Bush, because Bush supposedly was a military person. Great. You know what he was a military? He got us into the Middle East. How did that work out, right?
Now, he didn't run against George W. Bush. George W. Bush had already left office and was term locked into 2 terms, okay? He's talking about Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush was George W. Bush's younger brother, and he was the governor of Florida at the time. So the only thing he was commander-in-chief over was the Florida National Guard, not the U.S. military. I also want to play one here real quick that Jessica doesn't get a chance to mention, which is Donald Trump's take on windmills and whales.
But you have a better chance of being struck by lightning than hitting a whale with your boat. There has only been, listen to this, one such whale killed off the coast of South Carolina in the last 50 years. But on the other hand, their windmills are causing whales to die in numbers never seen before. Nobody does anything about that. They're washing up on shore. I saw it this weekend. 3 of them came up. You wouldn't see it once a year. Now they're coming up on a weekly basis. The windmills are driving them crazy. They're driving the whales, I think, a little batty.
Now, imagine what would happen if Joe Biden had said anything like that, the kind of coverage it would get on the Fox Propaganda Network. So with that in mind, I'm going to let Jessica Tarlov continue.
And then, of course, there are his authoritarian posts on Truth Social calling for the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff to be executed and saying that he's going to investigate media companies that he doesn't like. You know, and can you imagine if Biden said, you know what, I'm going to look into that Fox News. They don't seem to like me over there.
So you can hear Dana Perino. I think it's Dana Perino, but sometimes the video quality is too. Like it's either Dana Perino or Martha McCallum, but it's usually Dana Perino who's the blonde sitting by Jesse Waters. She's trying to interrupt and kind of derail, and you'll see how she does it in a minute. But Jessica Tarlov is absolutely correct. Imagine, like, those are the gaffes. Donald Trump has gaffes in abundance, a gaffe to match every single one of President Biden's. Okay, so by the standard that the Fox propagandists at the Fox News Network are talking about, Donald Trump is at least as bad as Joe Biden. But as Jessica Tarlov points out, there are also things that are unique to Donald Trump with respect to disturbing things that come out of his mouth, which is his authoritarian impulse. Joe Biden has never said anything close to the crazy, constant authoritarian things that Donald Trump says all the time. Imagine if a Democratic president called for the execution of America's top general, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Imagine what the Fox propagandists would do. Imagine, as she points out right there, if Joe Biden said, you know what, I'm the most powerful man in the world. I'm the head of state. I'm the head of government. I am ordering my Attorney General, Merrick Garland, or the Justice Department to begin investigations into the Fox propaganda network. Imagine how they would react. But they don't care because Joe Biden would never say anything like that. But it's okay when Donald Trump does. We'll continue.
This may be the choice that people have.
Yeah.
Trump versus Biden. Laid bare here, Jesse.
At least Trump can say LL Cool J, Jessica.
Are you
in a prompter?
ID to buy bread.
Biden.
So there you go. You see how they won't take the point seriously? Because they know they're screwed. They know they can't win a debate with her. She's better than they are. She's better on the facts. The facts favor her. And a comparison between Donald Trump and Joe Biden on the facts, on the merits in a formal debate, Joe Biden will always win. He's simply better than Donald Trump. He's a better person than Donald Trump. He's smarter than Donald Trump. He's more moral than Donald Trump. He's superior in every metric, which is why nobody can defend the contrary proposition. That's why they make a joke about it. And Dana Perino there, just like a snake, in her own way just as much as Jesse Waters and Greg Gutfeld. She doesn't address the point. She's just like, that's the choice that the American people have. Biden has his gaffes. Trump has his gaffes. Sure, we don't talk about them. And Trump also has these authoritarian impulses that we never address that Joe Biden doesn't have at all. But it's just kind of like that. It's up to the American people. And the problem is, it'd be one thing if they even presented it that way. Like, here are the bad things about Biden. Take what you will. Here are the bad things about Trump. Take what you will. But they don't do that. They hyper-focus on everything that Joe Biden does, and they completely sweep under the rug every bad thing about Donald Trump, from gaffes to authoritarian utterances, which he makes on the regular. So anyway, I just want to play that clip. It's really good. Jessica Tarlov once again proves she's so much better than her counterparts in every possible way. They are absolutely no match for her, and I'm excited for the next iteration of the 5 in which she does it all over again.